Without wasting for much time, I'll be jumping directly to the topic. So I think this is definitely a very confusing and stressful time for all of us, as I think the COVID-19 has affected numerous facets of our society, and it has also impacted every person in a different manner based on their level of threshold towards stress. And this disruption to their daily lives can be seen in different pictures as people are anxious about the examination. Some are worried about their jobs, their financial situations, or how are they going to support their family during this hour. So I think based on the sessions that I've had with my clients, I've observed that it has been a more difficult challenge for people with underlying mental health conditions, more so for people with anxiety disorders. I think they've been consumed with worry and stress. For those with schizophrenia, I think the concern that people are infectious may contribute a lot to the paranoia. And for those with depression, I think this lack of social engagement and disruption in routines can definitely increase a lot of symptoms. And this uncertainty and specific restrictions to COVID-19 has presented a lot of difficulties and challenges. So I was just reading through the other day and through a research article which said that during this hour, there are two strategies for mitigating the symptoms of stress, depression, and that is mainly by promoting social connectiveness and physical activity. I think in this current environment, necessary restrictions such as social distancing, self quarantining, and other measures can definitely make this a huge challenge. So we need to be very intentional about trying to find ways to reduce social isolation during this hour. For example, through virtual meetings, text, messages, or phone call, just trying to get the support from your close and loved ones and maintaining that communication pattern, keeping it alive, and also engaging in regular physical activity. I think a recent research that was conducted by Harvard School of Public Health found out that even if you run for 15 minutes a day or walking for an hour can reduce the symptoms of depression and stress by 26%. So when you exercise, your exercise releases endorphins in your body, and these endorphins get in touch with your brain receptors and trigger positive feelings in your body. And exercise can also definitely reduce the stress hormones and help to elevate your mood. So it's very important to maintain social contact and also keep your physical exercise active, if not outdoor, at least in your indoor spaces. And letting the people around you, normalizing the situation for them and making them aware that it's okay to feel stress and anxiety right now. These are normal reactions. And I think during stress during this time can induce a lot of fear and worry about your own health. It can disturb your sleep or change eating patterns. It can be difficult to concentrate. And I think there can also be elevated use of tobacco and alcohol use, because I've heard a lot of cases, especially for people in quarantine. I think because of the withdrawal symptoms, and they don't have the sources of using substance very easily when they are in mandated quarantine facility. I think the symptoms get the better of them, and most of them tend to escape quarantine. So I think it affects this demographic also hugely. And stress during this time can also change the structure of your brain, where there can be a disbalance between the gray and the white matter in your brain. And I think it's crucial to remember that how a person reacts to stress depends on their background, the social support that they receive from their family, their financial situation, the emotional background, and most importantly, the community that they live in. And people who are more strongly to get affected by stress during such time is people who are at a higher risk for COVID-19, children and teens, frontline workers, people who have existing health conditions, people who are socially isolated, and also people who are experiencing homelessness. And I think things to keep in mind in order to maintain your mental well-being is trying to limit the amount of news that you obtain. It is definitely important to obtain accurate and timely public health information regarding COVID, but trying to ensure that you gain such information from trusted sources only, such as CDC, WHO, or the respective ministries of health in your country. because too much of exposure to media coverage during such time can definitely induce the feelings of fear and anxiety. So it's important to balance the time that you spend on your news and social media with other activities such as reading, listening, or something that you like to engage in. And also trying to avoid focusing too much on COVID-19 news, and also trying to focus on the highlights, such as focusing on the helpers, the positive stories, the recovery rate. And the other thing is also trying to promote gratitude during this difficult time, starting to practice gratitude, identifying something that you're grateful for. And to cite an example, there was this political prisoner who was imprisoned for 36 years in his country. And out of this 36 years, 12 years, he was in solitary confinement. And what he said during his talk was that practicing gratitude and waking up every day and trying to figure out, even though there's nothing to look forward to in his life, trying to figure out just being grateful that he's alive, that really helped him get through those 12 years of confinement. So I think trying to look for something that you're grateful for each passing day as well is something that you can use. And moving on, also trying to inculcate mindful breathing into your practice. I think that will also, it's a very aidful tool to help regulate emotions and manage stress. And if you, as educators and leaders in educational institutions or any other organization, if you know that your students or someone around you is experiencing mental health concern, and just your therapies and techniques or the skills that you've been using is not working, it's very important to refer them to professional help and appropriate sources where they can get help from the appropriate sources. And also sometimes just reminding yourself that it's okay to let go of the expectation of the normal. I think once a week or twice a week, sometimes it's okay to forget the routine and just indulge in self-care practice, and trying to just be in the moment and figuring out what is actually important to me, and not feeling guilty for not following a specific routine, but just engaging in what you want to actually do today. And I think that it's important to remember that the truth about change is that the faster we let go of our expectations of the normal, the faster we adapt. So trying to put that into practice, and also trying to have a regular schedule if possible during this COVID-19 time, because when we don't have much to do behaviorally, I think that creates a vacuum in our mind and we tend to overthink a lot. And when you overthink a lot, I think a lot of feelings come up, mixed emotions or feeling guilty, uh, feeling a lot of regrets, constant fear and worry. So it's important to have a regular schedule maintained. And even when you're anxious and stressful about this uncertainty, trying to ask yourself, what is it that I can control in this situation? Am I unnecessarily worrying about the worst thing that can happen? So when I have stressed in the past, how have I regulated my stress? Or what are the things I do in this situation to try to be positive? So, and the other thing is also trying to get a good night's sleep. I think stress can result in a lot of sleep difficulties. I've had a lot of clients complaining about sleep difficulties. So when you have suffer from lack of sleep, I think it can definitely elevate your stress. So sleep deprivation makes parts of the brain that handle higher order functions work less. So it's important to have healthy sleeping habits. And while we may not wish to acknowledge it at times, uncertainty is definitely a natural process of life, and something that is that is unavoidable. So very little about our lives is actually very constant, and that is in our control. So as the COVID-19 has definitely shown how life can change very quickly, so it's important to remember that to cope with all this uncertainty, using worrying as a tool is not always a positive reinforcer, because sometimes we indulge into chronic worrying, thinking that if you worry or think about the situation more, we tend to have more control over the uncontrollable events, but it just robs you of the present moment. So it's important to realize or important to cope. Important to practice healthier ways of coping, such as, like I already mentioned, focusing on controlling things that are in your control. For example, if a person has lost his job, trying to focus on the little thing he still has control over, like putting it working on his resume, putting a search online. So what is the thing that I can actually control in this situation? So if you're worried about your health during this COVID-19 pandemic time, what is it that I can do to protect my health? Is it washing my hands, cleaning the surfaces, wearing my mask on? So some of the things that you actually have control over. And when irrational fears and worries take hold, it can be definitely very hard to think logically and accurately, weigh up accurately. So I think, like Madhav sir mentioned earlier, identifying what are your uncertainty triggers. So a lot of uncertainty tends to be self-generated through excessive worrying. So for example, however, some uncertainty can be generated through external sources as well. Like I said earlier, reading media stories that focus on worst case scenarios, spending time on social media among rumors and half truths. So I think these are something that can fuel your own fears and uncertainty. So it's important to recognize your triggers and to take action in order to avoid or reduce your exposure to them, and allowing yourself to feel the uncertainty as well. And instead of engaging in futile efforts to gain control over this uncontrollable situation, letting yourself experience the discomfort of uncertainty. Like all emotions, if you allow yourself to feel fear and uncertainty, I think this will definitely pass. But being accepting of your feeling and what am I exactly going through right now, and focusing on the present moment, your breathing, allowing yourself to just simply feel and observe this experience. And the other thing is trying to shift your attention. So when your mind wanders back to worrying or the feelings of uncertainty return, trying to refocus your mind on the present moment and practicing mindfulness and regulating your mindful breathing. And I think also, like earlier, like I mentioned, some of the tools to reduce or deal with your anxiety and stress, putting that or inculcating that into practice. And definitely, as again, to cite Madhav sir, like he mentioned that we all have different ways to